Having a brilliant mind in any profession, it doesn't even have to just be music, can be both a blessing and it can be a curse. That is really, I think, the best way to sum up this video already about Ben Folds. And you're going to see why, of course, throughout the duration of the video. Because while you can definitely make some fantastic art, there's no question, as you're going to see that Ben Folds has done so, it can definitely take a toll on your relations with others, whether it be your intimate relations or whether with a partner or whether it can be your relations with your friends, either one. Now, this is not going to be a video kind of dogging on Ben Folds as a person. Obviously, I don't know him. And like any normal person around the world, no matter what your circumstances, relationships, whether it be your personal one or whether it be with your friends, is always a difficult thing to maintain. So I just wanted to get that off the bat right away. But this is not only going to be a look at Ben as a musician and his history, but it's going to take a look at maybe some theories as to what happened to him, and you're going to see his very interesting personal life and even his relationship with his band members. Before I begin, though, I always like to start off my videos with a special shout out to you guys. Welcome to the Mainstream Indie Music channel. We talk about anything indie music, and we have been since a little over a year and a half ago, I think at this point. It's been a fantastic ride being with you guys. To the 700 subscribers, a special thank you for all that you do. And then, of course, if you're here just visiting, this is maybe your very first video that you're listening to and watching, well, welcome. I really appreciate that you're here. Now, let's just go into a brief history of who Ben Folds was as a person before we get into his music career. Now, he was born in North Carolina in the United States of America, and from a young age, he was encouraged to kind of venture into music. It's almost like I think especially his father kind of knew that he had a knack just for listening to music. And Ben had such a good habit and really talent of he was able to replicate things that he could just hear. He was one of those musicians where if he just listened to a song enough, he didn't even really need sheet music. He could just start to replicate it almost immediately. So, I mean, right away, you have to have a musical ear, and not only that, but be extremely talented if you're able to do so. Now, Ben also is a multi-instrumental musician. He specializes, though, with piano. That's I believe it was his first instrument, and if it wasn't, it's at least the very first instrument that he personally loved to play on. But he also knows how to play guitar, and he knows how to play drums as well. No doubt he's very talented. What's interesting, though, is his college years. So as Ben went to college, he first went to the University of Miami, and he went on a full percussion scholarship, which is, you have to imagine a very interesting feat. I might add that leading up to his college days, he was playing in multiple high school bands, either through his being a drummer or just other parts of a band that were needed. But even though he got that full scholarship, he ended up dropping out from that university. And what's interesting is I don't even think he dropped out in so much as he got kicked out for failing some sort of test. I'm not too familiar with kind of like colleges and entrances and so on and so forth. So I'm not quite sure what that means, but he kind of jokes about it and says that he got kicked out from that scholarship. So he kind of regrouped after that, and maybe that left kind of a bad taste in his mouth with percussion, because he says during that period of time, he doubled down on piano. He almost returned back to piano and just went full scale on it. He wouldn't really want to play anything differently. And then what he did was he went to college very close to home. He went to the University of North Carolina. And he said it was actually a good thing that he did because he met his musical mentor there, and things really started to take off during that time. Oh, also side note to you guys, he has his own biography that he wrote. So definitely, if you want more, if you need more information about Ben Folds, I appreciate you watching this video, but definitely check out his book as well. During the next period of years in his life, which now is roughly the early 1990s, Ben started to kind of hop around bands, around the area. And he would play many different instruments. I think during this period of time, he was more so used as a drummer. And the bands that he was involved with were pretty good. They did pretty well. They would win some festivals. They'd get some small recognition. Never any mainstream success, however. But he was noticed by a producer out in Nashville, Tennessee, who encouraged him to go out there. And so he did. He moved out to Nashville, Tennessee. And he said that he looks back at that time of his life very fondly because he says he didn't have to deal with record labels. He didn't have to deal with producers. It's almost like he literally just made music, and that's all he did. It's not even like he did so for money or fame. He got kind of that freedom during that period of time in his life to kind of just go out and do what he loved. The next kind of stint in his life is probably what he's most well known for, and that's when he had moved back up the East Coast around New York City because he loved theater, and so he kind of got himself involved a lot with that, and he formed the band Ben Folds 5. And their biggest hit is called Brick. What's kind of interesting is Ben Folds 5 got a lot of recognition, and I'm going to have to do a video on this because of the BBC would feature a lot of smaller bands and segments, and Australia would kind of do the same thing. And they got huge followings over there, even though not so much over in America. However, their experience was short-lived, and maybe it was because of the lack of exposure here in America. Maybe it was infighting amongst the band. But Ben Folds 5, around the mid-2000s to late 2000s, split up as a group, and he went off on his own and did Rock in the Suburbs, which is his biggest musical venture to date. Got him teamed up with Weird Al a lot. One final interesting thing to note about Ben Folds. Actually, there's two things. Number one, he has been married 5 times. In fact, now there's a play on that band name, Ben Folds 5, because of the 5 times that he's been married. And it's funny because he always says, like, oh, I'll never get married again, turns around, gets married again. And he's actually like an advisor for the National Symphony Orchestra, which is, quite an honor for a guy that had, like he said, flunked out of a musical college. And that's his story. He's still very active doing soundtracks and recordings. What do you guys think of Ben Folds? Do you think that he should have gotten more recognition, especially in the mainstream area media? Let me know.